Hey, how's it going? I'm Danny. Welcome back to my video series. This is video 2 about my experience living with bipolar disorder. Today I'm pulling another topic off of Reddit, and the topic I found that has a lot of comments and a lot of responses is it possible to be bipolar and stable and unmedicated? Um, Obviously, this video series is just me sharing my own experience as I do in my book. Same idea, it's just my experience as a guy who lives with bipolar disorder for 40 years. I was diagnosed in 1986 and I was 16 years old. Now I'm 56, I'm an old guy, and I have 40 years of experience living with bipolar disorder, and that includes a series of different degrees of stability and instability. I gotta say, mostly being stable. In the earlier years when I was first diagnosed, there was some mania that was pretty severe that I'll talk about here in a moment. And I did actually have one experiment, which I'm mostly going to talk about today. I had an experiment during COVID when I was still living in California where I quit my meds, which I've never done. I've always been a big proponent about not doing to folks I've talked to who are bipolar and have other mental health issues. But I did it anyway myself, and the consequences were pretty bad. So jumping into my earlier years bipolar, when I was diagnosed at 16, I was hospitalized for mania 3 separate times, or actually really 2 separate times. The first time I was really, really depressed and hadn't slept in about 9 months when I was hospitalized for a month in 1986. In the middle of my high school experience, and that was detrimental, I'd say, to being a functioning member in my high school and having friends and having stability. Being gone for a month in the psych hospital and coming back as a whole different person was definitely life changing. And my friends changed, and my lifestyle changed, and it was hard. But what I mostly want to talk to you about is my experience back in 2020, where I had been taking my medication. It was during the earlier to kind of mid period of COVID, living in California in Alameda, California, in the Bay Area, and staying at home 100%. I was working remotely. My wife was working remotely. My son was going to school remotely at home on a computer, and it was a tough time. I'm sure you can remember if you experienced that as well. What happened was, over the course of a number of months, maybe 6 months or 3 or 4 months, I had periodically missed taking doses of my meds. So, I use these plastic containers to have morning and evening doses pre-made up. So I'll spend, once every 6 weeks or 8 weeks or so, I'll sit down and spend 15, 20 minutes putting all my medications into all these containers, which includes psych meds and also stuff for my health. I have AFib, so I take meds for that. I have chronic kidney disease, which is from lithium toxicity when I was in my 20s. I also take meds for that, and for cholesterol, I think. So anyway, I had missed my morning doses during that period. Over a period of probably 4 or 6 weeks, I probably missed about 30 to 40% of my morning doses. So I missed a lot of doses. I just forgot to take them. And then when I remembered, it was already evening time for my evening doses. So I just skipped the morning doses. So seeing how many doses I had missed, it gave me the rationale at the time to think, well, if I missed all these morning doses of my psych meds, maybe I can actually try quitting, because this is a great time. I'm protected, I'm safe, I'm in a structured environment, living at home. I'm not out in public dealing with people, that kind of thing. I'm just with my family. So I chose to stop taking all my psych meds, kept my other meds going, but I chose to quit taking my psych meds for a period, probably lasted a couple of weeks, I think. I have it documented somewhere, but I think it was a couple of weeks. And in the beginning, the first week or so, I felt fine. I felt good. I felt stable. But then I got a little bit crazy. I started to hear voices again a little bit, and I got really, really angry. I was really defensive with my wife, and I was critical of my son and his mistakes with schoolwork or whatever else he was doing around the house. And this was a kid who was 10 years old, or even less, probably about 8 years old or 9 years old. And I made my son cry a few times, just being critical of him. And it really hurt my feelings, but I couldn't stop being angry. I was so angry. And I knew that it was because of the meds. Didn't tell my wife I was doing this experiment. Didn't tell anybody, my psychiatrist, anybody else. So one afternoon, I was riding my bicycle in Alameda, and I had this sudden, intense surge of the walls closing in. Like everything was getting really tight and scary, and I was doomed, and I was fucked. And the last time I had these feelings was when I was in high school, before I was institutionalized the first time for a month. And so I immediately turned my bike around, went home, managed to get a hold of my psychiatrist at Kaiser, and told her what was going on, told her what I had done. And she helped me get back on my meds fairly quickly, fairly rapidly, so I could get back into the kind of like blood measurement levels, so my meds were correct in my body and my system. Told my wife what I had done. She was pretty angry and pretty upset, but it helped explain why I'd been so defensive and angry around the house. And I swore to never do that again. It was scary, to be honest, you guys. It was frightening, and it felt really, really reminiscent of stuff I'd experienced in high school, which was a dreadful, terrible, horrible experience when I was institutionalized. The things that led up to that institutionalization, the suicide attempt that led up to that when I was 19, or yeah, I think I was 19. No, it was when I was 16 when I was institutionalized. Or actually, no. Yeah, I get the dates mixed up. But anyway, the whole point is that this experience about 6 years ago was terrifying. I recommend against it. And to answer the question, is it possible to be stable and unmedicated? For me, it's not possible. Maybe it's for you or somebody you know. But for me, as someone with bipolar disorder, bipolar 1, I have to be on meds. I have to be seeing a psychiatrist regularly. And actually, I have therapy in about a half an hour with my therapist, who I see every Thursday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. I recommend not doing something like this at all. I recommend staying on your meds. Or if you're not on meds, getting on meds. Yeah, that's my experience. Hope this video was helpful. Again, this is Danny Zemer with my series on Mostly Grounded. And I hope to see you again next week when I record my next video. Thanks.